Good afternoon. I'm Annie Larkin, the Associate Curator of Public Programs at the Amerind Museum, and welcome to Amerind Virtual Autumn Fest Salon Art and Sale with Gerry Quotskuyva. Amerind Virtual Autumn Fest is made possible this year through the generous support of sponsors Sterling Investments, Arizona G&T Cooperatives, and the Arizona Commission on the Arts. Thank you to these organizations for enabling Amerind to have this free programming for our audience. Thank you also to our members and donors who not only make this type of programming possible, but Amerind's mission to promote the knowledge and understanding of the Native peoples of the Americas through research, education, conservation, and community engagement. To learn how you can assist Amerind in supporting its mission by becoming a member or donor, please visit amerind.org. Amerind Virtual Autumn Fest will feature Indigenous artists and performers from throughout the Southwest today, as well as October 24th. In addition to our art salon and sale with Gerry today, we will have another at 3 p.m. with photographer Priscilla Ticini. Then next Saturday, October 24th, we will have another incredible day of programming with performances by Tony Duncan, Gabriel Ayala, and salon art and sales with Raquel Kemp, Troy Seiss, and Ray Salate. You can join us by watching the programs live on Facebook or registering to view the events on Zoom. For information about Amerind Virtual Autumn Fest programming, check the events section of the Amerind Facebook page or website. During the last several months, we have all been enduring a world altered by the COVID-19 pandemic. Many artists and musicians featured in the Virtual Autumn Fest have been negative impacted financially and have not had the opportunities to sell their art or their music. We at Amerind ask that if able, please support these talented people through a purchase of their works of art or music, or provide gratuity. Through your support, you can make a direct impact in the lives of artists and musicians. We hope today that you will support the work of Gerry Quotskuyva by purchasing a piece of his artwork. In addition to what we will share on the Salon Art and Sale today, you can find more of his work on his website at gquotskuyva.com/all-products. This information will also be posted in the comments section of the Facebook Live video and sent in an email to all of our Zoom registrants. Hopi artist Gerry Quotskuyva is a painter, carver, and sculptor. His remarkable style has been nationally recognized in various media, including public television, newspaper articles, and books. Gerry has garnered numerous awards for his carvings and paintings from museum shows, and his works have also been showcased in group exhibits. Amerind is so thankful to Gerry for sharing his time and his art with our audience today. And with that, sir, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to participate in this program. First off, let me share a little about myself. As I was listening to Annie speak, I got to thinking about when I became an artist, and I realized that I kind of have been an artist my whole life, but I didn't take it seriously until I was in my mid-30s. But even in the 5th or 6th grade, I do remember seeing some drawings that I did in a student art exhibit at the Museum of Northern Arizona. And throughout the years, I aspired to be a photographer and dabbled with that for a while, even won an award from a rodeo show in Tucson. And as time has gone by, I went to school in Tucson and was studying it, and started doing some artwork just to support myself as a student. And that resulted in my eventually dropping out of college and just pursuing the arts entirely. Something I would have never thought about seriously. It was a matter of necessity. And now it's absolutely remarkable what has happened as an artist in my journey. I initially started off as a carver, and that was sort of unique in itself in that I had a woman one day walk up to me and hand me a pocket knife, and she said, "Someday you're going to need this." And I didn't think anything about it. I didn't realize that the sculpting was somewhat of a cultural responsibility in Hopi. However, prior to that, I used to sculpt ice for restaurants in the Tucson area. So I had this visual ability to look at a block of ice and pull from it what I was looking for, or what I wanted to, whatever the particular like rotary symbol and things like that that I needed to achieve. So when I started working with the roots of the cottonwood tree, it was very easy for me to start getting close to what I wanted and then refining my techniques, which resulted in my developing a career as a carver really fast. And then it got to the point of where there was I was creating a style and working on technique that resulted in a very unique style, but it took 18 months for people to understand what I was doing. And that resulted in all of a sudden, at that 18-month mark, I had so much demand for my work that I was kind of feeling stressed, and I didn't feel like I was putting the right energy into my pieces. So I started painting. And it was interesting what happened, because there was this spy synergy, you might say, that occurred in which, as I learned more techniques in my painting on canvas, it started getting applied to the dolls. And then as time went by, I reversed that whole learning process and was doing some paintings in which I was actually making the frames and stretching the canvas, but I was putting a little box on there that was kind of like a portal. And I would do a painting of a particular Katsina with a carving inside of the box. The box was lined with cottonwood root and carved out to look like bricks. So it was a unique concept again, a different direction I was going. Since then, I have dabbled and played around with several other mediums, including bronzes, of which I do have some of those available today. And am currently experimenting with glass. I have some ideas, and I'm kind of tinkering around with screen printing on glass. Years ago, one of the things I did while I was in college was work as a student aide, in which I got a job in the screen printing lab. And my sole purpose behind that was because I was at a Native American festival in Casa Grande. And there was this guy in a booth next to me. My mother and I were doing it, and there was a guy in the booth next to me who was, he had his car backed up to his booth, and he opened the hood, and he had all these boxes of t-shirts in there, but what caught my attention was on one side of the car, he had all of these fanny packs that were just lying there, and I found that curious. But as the weekend went on, what I watched was him pulling those shirts out. He was selling them really cheap. I think they were like $5 a shirt. And he was just stuffing those fanny packs full of $5 bills. And when one would fill up, he'd whip it off, throw it in the trunk, and put another one on. So I decided I wanted to be a t-shirt printer. And that's why I took this class. What ended up resulting from that, though, was the realization that, yeah, I can do this too. So I kind of tinkered around with screen printing, but I still was not in the mode of selling my artwork. I was just playing around. I did beadwork when I was growing up. So my arts up until my mid-30s was purely just for fun. I mean, I would make gifts sometimes, especially with screen printing. I would do these massive images that would have almost 20 colors. And they were messages for friends, in that I wanted to share, I wanted to talk to them about something that was going on, but I found the best way to do it was through my artwork. And I would tear those images up. I didn't think anything about it. And so I was printing 32 by 40 images. When it was over, tear it up and throw it in the trash can. And one day I walked into the lab after sharing an image with a friend, and I found her there taping up one of the serigraphs, and she told me I really should consider being a serious artist. So I kind of dabbled around for a little bit, ended up landing an account with the Stuckey's Corporation, making dream catchers and shields, which was something that wasn't on the market at the time, but I used that same concept of the round hoop, stretching the leather in the middle and then painting Hopi designs all over that. And that resulted in a large monthly order by Stuckey's, in which I had several other students working with me in production of these. So once a month, I'd drive over to Albuquerque, make the delivery, cash that check, and pay all the students off. And that's how we were surviving while we were in school. That eventually led to my traveling with my mother doing art shows, and then my starting to do art shows and entering the museums and competitions. And it all took off from there. It's been an interesting journey, and in the process, I have developed some unique techniques. As I mentioned, I started off with the carvings and everything, and I'm going to share with you the whole process of what I do. In Hopi, the edict is we're supposed to use cottonwood root. So for us, it's not a material we can go to the store and buy. We have to forage the rivers. And so usually after some really good, strong floods, you'll see truckloads of Hopis heading down to the Verde River or any of the rivers nearby. Some people venture out to New Mexico, up to Nevada and Colorado. And I've heard of some Hopis actually gathering cottonwood root in Oklahoma. So it is a commodity. It's getting harder and harder to find with the droughts that we've had. But this is an example of what the root looks like. This is a raw piece, and as you can see, it's a pretty big piece. Some of the things that we look for when we're doing these, collecting this wood, is we will take it and scratch the surface, checking out how soft it is, tapping on it to listen. You can hear there's still a little moisture in there. It doesn't have a real soft tone yet. There's a friend of mine who's a stone carver, and the name of his business is Singing Stone Studios, and that kind of cued me in on the tapping and listening to the quality. You can hear it. It's like dull right now. So in some ways, collecting the root or gathering the root is like going to the store and shopping for a watermelon, where you're sitting there and you're tapping and you're listening to see how it sounds. This is a piece that will eventually be carved into a Katsina sculpture. As you can see, it's a fairly large piece, but they range anywhere. I mean, people use even like 2-inch round pieces of wood, and the bigger, the better for some of us. I use power tools to do my work, which a lot of the carvers sort of frown on because it's not traditional. And I know I was going through a lot of struggles at first when I started presenting my work, because they were so different, and the collectors would ask me to use power tools. And it was a struggle. But my explanation to them was that I am a contemporary Hopi, and that I have a right to use more modern tools. And after about 18 months of educating the people with the style and the direction I went, all of a sudden it just took off, and they understood what I was doing. And thanks to the Herd Museum and the support by the folks at the Herd, they too really promoted my work. So they kind of have been the exclusive distributor for many years of my work. And I am planning on this season putting more work out there, like at the Amerind. I would like to slow down on the traveling, so this is my thought process, is to go ahead and start working with other entities. For the last 26 years, I have been somewhat exclusive to the Herd. So I am opening the door, any of you dealers out there, to the possibility of allowing someone else to represent me. When I get the wood, I have to let it dry for a long time, as in this piece that I showed you. Here's another one that I'm working on. This is going to be a broad-faced Katsina, and as you can see, he's got a pretty, his face is starting to come out. And what I do is I use a fordham to rough them in, and I can get them this close with the fordham, but then what I have to do is go back, and my primary tool is this, what I always call my $9.95 special. It's an old-timer pocket knife, and I found it to be the best with the angle to be able to get up and carve out, like rounding off the eyes and things like that. And it's a really good quality blade. However, Old Timer did go out of business, and the new company that took them over, the quality of the knives these days aren't as great. So I'm buying what I can find on eBay and places like that. as of the original old-timers. Now they are on average $20, so the price went up. But they may, as I mentioned before, I use a Fordham, and this is an example of what a Fordham looks like. It's a pretty, this is the first handpiece that I'll use. It's pretty aggressive, and I can go through and like clean out areas like this, so that I can go to a smaller version of a burr and get it closer in the shape. Once I get that done, then I go into using a tapered burr, which is just a small little round one. I don't know if you can see that hair that's sticking off of it, but and then I can go in and start drawing in the lines and some of the more intricate details like this. Once I get to that point, I have a really fine diamond point tip to where I'll start doing a little of the undercutting and everything. And then I go back to the pocket knife along with these, an X-Acto knife and a little larger handled X-Acto knife to carve the detail out in the pieces. So I'm still putting the attention to the little innuendos and everything that goes into the doll with the pocket knife. And as a result, what it does is the use of the power tool at the very beginning enables me to do more of a detailed and quality product. In the case of this, you can see I've even got the feather fan that will be on his head really thin there, and then there's what will be the little bustle of feathers on the backside. So in this case, this one's going to be a full figure piece, and as you can see, I've kind of cut down into there already, and that's where the arm's going to be there, and there will be another arm coming down here, as well as his legs will be fully exposed, unlike the sculpture style that his pieces is a carving of a Katsina without any body. And I will get into more detail. I'm also working on a smaller piece here. This is going to be an ogre, and he's going to be in the sculpture style without the body, but I kind of reinvented the direction I'm going sculpture style wise. For years, it was always a shape like this with the kilt going down to the foot and the foot sticking out. But now with the new direction I'm exploring, this is actually going to be his waist with the belt and then his legs coming down. So you will actually see the leg. And on the ones that have the kilts in this style, the kilts will only go down so far to where you'll actually see the legs again. So I'm making some changes in the style that I've been doing for many years. However, the style I have been doing for all these years is still extremely popular. I did do a period where I actually retired doing the sculpture style, but again, the herd through their guidance sat me down and they explained artists spend years finding that product that will gain the popularity that I have with that. So they couldn't understand why I quit doing them. And the reason behind it was because I was doing a miniature collectible set, which was 4-inch size dolls. And there were 16 dolls in a set, and I did 35 sets. So that was a really popular product. The concept was if you purchased the dolls, you got them at a discounted price from the normal price for the whole set. And you also received a copy of a book that was published on me in '94, I think it was, and a butterfly maiden. So it was a really good package at a decent price. And the commitment I made to my collectors who were purchasing those pieces was that I would quit sculpting them once the final set was completed. And when that occurred, for some reason, I just decided to retire all sizes. And yeah, it hurt. Let me give you an example. Let me grab it on real quick. This is a finished piece, and this is a mud head. And as you can see, he has no body, but he has some really unique shapes to him in his presentation. This is a uniform style for what I do. And what I did was I had studied the works of other carvers. And at the time, what was considered the traditional doll was like this broad face that I'm working on, a full figure doll in appearance as he would be in the plaza during a dance. And then the other style that was known at the time was what was called the sculpture style, which was basically the head of a Katsina with random designs and mostly raw wood in the bottom section. At that time, the old style, the renaissance of the old style, which I fondly call the new old style, hadn't occurred. So there were only those two distinct styles, and what I did is I fused them together, that being no body, but still putting all the proper clothing and everything on them. And since it was a contemporary approach, one of the things I did was do some personal design things, like on the bottom here where the cape comes in like this. All Katsinas represent cloud beings, so that was to symbolize the becoming of that spiritual being, the evaporative process in becoming a cloud. And then I used the foot, the knee, the hand, and the shoulders to give you that impression that there was a body within the piece for the embodiment of the soul. And then I left the cape open on one side as a releasing of the spirit or heart within. So in addition to the traditional meanings behind the Katsina, there was also a contemporary rendition that was inserted into it. And they've been a really popular style. From that though, I also felt the freedom to do some other designs and go other directions than just carving what would be considered a Katsina doll. And as a result, I've done some really unique pieces that have been a lot of fun. Sometimes I look at them years later when I go to a friend's house and it's like, did I do that? It's kind of funny, but it's been a most enjoyable experience. I'm going to take you over now to what I do have available and kind of talk with you a little about that. And then we'll sit back down and do a Q&A session more towards the end. Let me clear the way out of the clock so that I don't overtalk myself. Here, let's see. You see an example of my dolls. Let's see, let's put him back up there and get into the camera too. And as you can see, they mostly do have that unique shape and design on them. This one here is a Sotlico, which I sometimes do in the style, but I like to really follow the shape of the wood, and I save those curved pieces for that type of setup. The first piece I have here, and you know what? I don't even know what the size of these pieces are, is a crow. And I think this one is about a 6-inch piece to the top of the head. But let me bring her a little closer so you can see some of the detail of her. Down here is her jewelry. She's wearing a fur. So I carve them out with a lot of detail and then paint it to look more like a fur. And then she's got yarn around her face and everything along with the feathers on top of her head. As I mentioned, I do like to have that whole presentation with the foot and the knee and everything. But as you can see, there's a lot of cutback behind the basket here. And her belt does have a lot of texture in it. I like to use a wood burner to give it that tactile feel. To me, I'm just, my world seems to be complex. It's too hard for me to do something simple. So I tend to get more done when I'm doing all this detail and everything. And as you can see, there's undercuts everywhere. Even like here, the fur is off of the cape. So they just, and the feathers here. So there's a lot of depth and creation. You can see here also where it's, how far it's cut in underneath the cape, and a lot of detail. But yet, however, one of the things I wanted to do as a contemporary style was kind of have a twofold visual in that, and it happened somewhat by a mistake. When you look at her from the front, she looks like your average Katsina. However, when you turn her around, if you can't, if she's in the middle of a room and you're not familiar with the art form, or even if you are, as you can see, she takes on just an artistic, stylistic presentation. So I'm really happy with this style. This one, as I mentioned, is a crow mother, And then this is the Hanomana, same thing, the undercut under her neck, her jewelry coming down, and all the details and everything. She too wears a very similar cape like that. But one of the features about the Hanomana is she's a first Mesa moisture maiden, and her haircut is the symbol of a cloud with that stair-step pattern. And then her hair itself represents rain falling down. So I always put a feather there, as in she's praying for the rain. Then I also have her always with a pot. In this case, they're not really pots that you would carry water with. However, she does still have a pot for that purpose. So they're very simple in design. However, with the painting and everything, they end up becoming very complex. Now the Satloko, this is one that really I spent a lot of time. Let's see, as you can see, her face there, there's a lot of work in that, and the feathers and everything. The Satloko, I make the headdress separate, but I carve it in a way to where, as you can see, it's got this little beveled area. Oops, just dropped that, so I'm gonna have to leave that on the floor for now. But I designed it to where the headdress will slide into the top of her head. I do that for shipping purposes so that it doesn't get broken when it's shipped, and it's really easy for the collector to slide that, to glue it in. Here's the thing that I most enjoy about it. On the feathers here, each one of those is carved. I do a little bit of undercut on each one, and that gives it more depth. Then I also, as an artistic injection, will leave one side of the feather more smoother, and we'll put a rainbow with a one spot, and that is more of a spiritual injection, in that the dot represents the Mr. Dew that creates the rainbows. Normally it would just all be eagle feathers coming down, but as an artist, I kind of don't restrict myself to everything as it's supposed to be done, but focus more on adding more details. The Satloko is considered one of the more sacred of all the Katsinas, and doesn't perform as frequently as most of them do. Then this is the Ogre Woman. She's considered an aunt in Hopi lore, and she has a stick with her and comes out during the bean dance ceremony, and will go around with the other Katsinas as they go from house to lecture the children who have been misbehaving. It can be a scary time where all of your aunts and relatives are telling you as a child, the Soyokos are coming, and you know that you could get pulled out of your house and whipped or disciplined for whatever you've been doing bad. So it's like the children all of a sudden start behaving really well. And she has, the reputation of coming out and lecturing, or not lecturing the children. The Hahairuti, or the grandmother, is the one who primarily does that. But in her case, she has a staff, and that is actually separate. I carved that on and added separately, but it is a one-piece staff that slides down into the hand like that. And as you can see, again, the undercut all the way around, and the openings and everything creates a lot more depth. She's got a great little face on her, and is very intimidating. And then back to the Mudhead. He's one of the earth people, and he's one of the few Katsinas who can actually speak. And you'll see him kind of walking around the plaza, talking and everything. But the Mudheads, quite often, what they do is they come out and sing the songs for the Katsinas during the fast dances. These are what I currently have available as dolls, and the two pieces that I showed you, they are available for commission if you would like to go ahead and follow me on my website with my blog. I do share the process and where I'm at with my work, and I'll share more about that information later. Now over to the bronzes. I've been playing around with bronzes. I want to experiment more in the future. However, right now, one of the things I'm doing is experimenting with glass, of which I'll show you some of the pieces that I've done here shortly. And in the future, I'm planning on fusing bronze and glass in my artwork. One of the first pieces I did was actually a piece that was a carving that was so popular, and that was a corn maiden. As a bronze, that edition is sold out, but I will share what they look like as I get to the completion of the bronze section. I also carved this one here. Did this one here. This one's a butterfly maiden. It's a bronze, and I wanted to keep it very limited in coloration because I was more interested in the epitomizing the style of carving that I've done for many years. So I was real happy with her. But one of the things that I did is I put a shawl on her, and I wanted to do kind of give it the impression of an Asian silk shawl. And because I have a lot of Asians who collect my work, so I put butterflies with flowers on there, and then that's the area that really, that and the hair and the little prayer stick are the only areas that received color on this particular design. The shawl for the beauty of the Katsina, the hair for the rain, and the prayer stick for the power that she brings and possesses. I actually did this piece, not this particular piece, but this design after I had done my first bronze and I got a residency at IAIA with the privilege to work out of Alan Hauser's commercial foundry, which he donated to IAIA when he passed away, along with 100 acres. And it's now where the new contemporary art version of the traditional downtown version of IAIA is. So it was kind of interesting because years ago I bought a book about Alan Hauser at a yard sale, and as I was looking at it, I was telling a friend how much I dream about someday having a studio like his. And while I was doing the residency, I sent that person some photographs sharing the experience I was having there. And what resulted was she sent me some photographs back from the book saying, "Do these look familiar?" And all of a sudden I realized that book, the photographs I was showing her were actually from where I was standing. So it was quite an interesting experience. And I had gone fairly well prepared, so I was actually able to cast 9 of these while I was there, and they all sold before I left. However, because I was so ahead of the normal timing that they give the artist to go into the foundry and work, they allowed me to go ahead and do extra pieces if I wanted to. And this was one of them here. I grabbed a piece of wax and carved it all out. And then I took some wax and melted it and splattered it on the backside after I had put little lines in there. What I wanted to do was create the impression of like a wall, and the rain was falling down and the corn was growing pretty healthy, but I had prayer sticks on both sides, as in the prayer for the rain, and then the stars in the sky. And I'm really happy with what ended up. I still had extra time, so what I ended up doing was this piece here. This is a bronze bracelet. I had no idea what I was going to do, but this is a serpentine stone, and when I decided that I was going to go ahead and make a bracelet, I went out to look for stones, and I just quickly discovered that Santa Fe is not the best place to find stones, cabochons for doing jewelry. And I was kind of at a loss, and I thought, well, I'm going to have to take off to Albuquerque to go find one. And one day I stopped at a yard sale and found this stone, and that set the tone for this one completely. What I did here was like around the stone, the example of the little sections below the skirt, the white, I'm not sure, it's like just little decorative part that's along the bottom of like most skirts and every what is it, underskirts or something like that. At any rate, And then I did the wings as if off the head of a Katsina, but as you can see, I did them opposite directions to symbolize that concept of the clasped hands of friendship and spirit. Then I did my own interpretation of the Zia sun face. And this piece was in effect designed as a the unison and the opportunity at the IAIA, which this is in New Mexico, in my first big venture in bronzes. And that was quite exciting. The last piece I have completed is this one here, the eagle. And I actually had a whole different idea of what I wanted to do here. My original plan was just to do this part of the body and then here take and do overlay symbols and the feathers to create the wings coming down. So I was going to do more of the body without the wings coming out like that. But as I was working on the piece, it fought me. So I ended up coming out with something completely different than what I had intended. And the really cool thing about it was there was, after I had done it, I did a Google search, image search, and discovered that somewhere in the back of my head, there was a memory that I hadn't recalled in a long time. Because I wasn't able to do the overlay symbols, I went ahead and put just a strand of turquoise on to give the impression of a Native American piece. And when I did the image search, I took photographs of this in several different angles, put them on my website, and then did the search. And one link came out of all of that. And it was about a film, a Disney film from 1967 that was being filmed in '64. And it was about a Hopi folklore tale, the legend of the boy and the eagle. And I happened to know the young boy who was Navajo, ironically. Hopi still don't get to play their own roles. But his parents owned a trading post out along the border, and he got the role as the lead character in that. So it was really kind of interesting. I was kind of like in this state of mind of wow, what just happened, when I was sitting in my studio one day, and a fellow who had been hanging my signs for businesses when I had my gallery in Sedona and we moved around came in one day. And for some reason, he decided to share a story with me. And it turns out that he was the backup for that lead character. So in effect, he actually played as an actor, the one and only gig, the name of this character. So it was quite the experience of having a piece of wood fight me and then all this story come back through. Now here's one of my main pieces that I did with a lot of intent. This is cultural fortitude, and it's about the strength and the resilience of the Puebloan people. What I wanted to do was a piece about kivas, and I wanted to place it on a pedestal of some sort to emphasize that this is our place of learning. This is where we go and for our ceremonies and everything. But I also wanted to recognize the past along with the present and how we have been doing this for a long, long time. So what I have here are two different styles of the kiva: the round, which were so prevalent during the Mesa Verde, during the period of alcove ruin sites and everything, and then the square, which from what I've learned, the corners were something introduced by the Spaniards. And what I wanted to do was give it the impression of being on an alcove ruin site, so you can see the rocks coming up around on both sides. And then I wanted to make the corn the focal point of the piece, so it was kind of easy to go ahead and place it on the corner like that. And as part of what goes on in here, the men sit inside of the kiva and sing. So I wanted to put the petroglyph symbols on here as a symbol of the old ways, but it's also my musical notes as they float down towards the corn. And it also represented the ancient art forms of the Puebloan people. And then I used overlay symbols here to represent the clouds with the dot for the rain, and then the hash marks inside of there, which my understanding is it's about peace and harmony. So there was so much that went into this as far as the overall design. It did take me several years working it through my head. And the interesting thing is these elements all, as they come together, actually are some of the elements of Hopi prayers. But the final part I wanted to do was about how we are a culture that's filled with secrecy. So on the backside is the full rendition of a tower house. And so I was really pleased with it. This is the first bronze I did, and as you can see, it's a corn maiden. Came from a dream, and what I was dreaming about was the husks of the corn turning into the robes and the Katsinas flying from it. So although it's not the conventional presentation, it was my dream. I'm gonna have to move kind of fast here because I can see we're getting close to the end. Up here are the current glass pieces that I'm doing. I am experimenting. This is with screen printing, as I mentioned before, and these two here were part of the first series that I did, and then this was part of the second batch that I did. So as you can see, my direction is evolving there. However, the studio that I was using has closed down, so I am in the process of acquiring a kiln so that I can continue to explore with those more. They currently are not on my website, but will be in the near future. It's just a matter of getting the kiln and getting going and experimenting on that. So that gives you an idea of what I do with my work. And if you would like to find out more about these pieces, some of them are on the website. I haven't put the glass on there yet, and I need to get that done. But you can go to my website and subscribe. I'm currently working on a project called the Gnarly Root, which is a phenomenal piece of wood. It actually is several pieces of root that fuse together, making a base that's about this wide, and then they split and all come up and come together again. It's roughly 4.5 feet tall, and there's other pieces of root that are coming off of it. So it was just an incredible piece of root that I've held on to for many, many years, curing it. And now I'm working on it, and I have somewhere around 35 different Katsinas, but it's a matriarchal piece on the front, and on the back, it's about the men and their responsibilities to the culture in living more the traditional way as a sustainable community. If you would like to watch my progress on that piece, go to my website and subscribe to my blog, or if you would just like to see what I'm doing with it, you can go to the blog and read previous posts about that. And at this point, I think I will go ahead and turn the table back over to Annie so she can, if there's any questions, I can go ahead and answer them. Annie?
Thank you, Jerry. And yes, if you have any questions, please feel free to type that into the Q&A box for our Zoom viewers or in the comment area for our Facebook viewers. And I hope you don't mind, Jerry. Real quick, I'm going to just pull up a slide that has your website. So that way folks can definitely find it without a problem.
On this image you have here,
yes,
the mud head, the mud heads on the left, that piece was somewhere around 2 feet tall. I think it was 24 inches tall. And it actually was a best of show winner at the Arizona State Museum when they used to have the shows here. And then the mouse that's on the right was purely an artistic interpretation. While technically there is no mouse Katsina in the ceremonies, the skit that the clowns did years ago brought him to life. So a lot of carvers like to do the little field mouse, and I decided I wanted to approach him, making him even more so that look of a warrior, a proud warrior. So that's how that one came about. And then the photo in the center was just something I was working on, and I was doing some photo shoots one day. I do all my own photography, and as I mentioned, I aspired to be a photographer from when I was young, so it's been kind of fun experimenting with that.
One question we have is, are the bronzes with patina?
are the, I'm sorry, that kind of cut out, are the what?
Bronzes with patina?
Um, I was told way before I ever became a carver that you weren't supposed to cast Katsinas in bronze because it's a cold product and you can't bring it to life as you do with the wood. Part of our objective as carvers is to bring them to life. So you will hear carvers talking about how they sing to their dolls and how they put energy into the work. And it is kind of funny because I had a situation one time where a friend of mine wanted to see a doll and she was a waitress in Sedona. And so I brought it with me to show her while having breakfast there. And there happened to be a group of people from another country who were really into spirituality. And when I pulled it out to show it to her, this crowd just come rushing to my table and they were passing it all between themselves, talking about the energy they could feel from it. So they were catching that energy that I put into my work. It's kind of important that we do that. So we, as a norm, you won't find very many carvers who do cast their dolls in bronze.
And beyond the piece that you're wearing, have you made any other pieces of jewelry?
I've had a lot of people request them. However, I haven't been able to. I did take some ideas to a foundry, but because we were talking one-offs and limited edition, pieces that small, they weren't interested in doing. However, there is a new casting unit that's out. It's roughly a 6 foot wide by 3 foot deep table with cabinets down below and a smelter on top, as well as a mold maker, which enables you to be able to do bronze castings. And unfortunately, I can't afford one of those, and everybody who has them seems to use them only for their personal use. But eventually I will, because I do have a lot of people who've wanted one. With bronze, you kind of have to, it's a blend of brass and copper, so the metal will discolor your arm. So what you have to do is put a coat of fingernail polish on the inside, and that'll separate your skin from the actual metal. And every so often, you have to go back and apply some more fingernail polish because it wears off as time goes by. But it makes for a very masculine piece. However, I do have some ideas and I'm doing some research, and I do eventually plan on coming out with a line dealing with just Native American art, and I'm hoping that I can get moving on that soon.
All right. And when you said the Crow Mother had yarn around her head and around her neck, is that real yarn or is that carved wood?
Oh, it's carved wood. Yeah, I don't add anything on it other than what's, carved out. The old style, they do have a lot of feathers, and there was a period where that style kind of stopped because what was happening was a lot of the carvings had eagle feathers and certain duck feathers, as well as woodpecker, and they were all on the endangered species list. So that kind of is what caused the whole transition from carving dolls with a lot of feathers to carving the feathers out. And over the years, I have kind of taken some pleasure in, like one time I was at a bank, and it was an old bank, Arizona bank, that used to collect dolls and have them in their branches. And I was at a Bank of America who bought one of the buildings, and I happened to look up one day and there was a doll there. And my first thought was, oh, there's a Navajo doll up in the wall. But then I started looking at it and I realized the Navajo dolls of today look a lot like the old Hopi dolls from the 70s. That's when, I think it was in 72 when the Endangered Species Act was implemented and we made that transition to carving the feathers out.
All right. And For one of your Katsinas in your display, what is the typical amount of time you take to produce a piece?
It's hard to say. Um, One of the other things I was taught is when you're carving the dolls, um, you're creating your own children. So, like any family, I treat them like my children, and I work on a lot of dolls at the same time. And like children in the family, sometimes one child needs more attention than another. So when I come into work in the morning, um, I will respond to whichever one seems to be speaking to me the most. And that also applies to, I have been known to show somebody a piece of wood saying, this is what I'm going to make. I go outside into my shed, and when I come back hours later, I have something completely different. So I never keep track of my time nor stick to what my thoughts are, because for some reason the wood wants to be something else. So um, I couldn't really tell you how much time I spend on any one piece, and it's probably a good thing because I'd probably be charging more money for them.
And are your Katsinas signed in some manner by you?
Yes, on the signature on the bottom, um, the G, typically the part that is formed on the bottom part, I exaggerate that and make it a prayer feather. So my symbol is full circle with a prayer, and it's like a prayer for life, because as Hopi people, we do believe in that full circle. And a fellow told me one time that although we stick as close to tradition as we can, it's the relish the children going to school away from the reservation and learning, about the modern world. It's kind of like that concept with what is it? With the man's descent to the underworld, going out and bringing newfound knowledge back home. So, I lost my train of thought there. At any rate, I just kind of follow all of these things that carry meaning for me personally in the carving of the pieces.
And would you mind sharing a little bit more about your Gnarly Root project?
Okay, the Gnarly Root project has been something that has completely been done away from home. I, by nature, as I was taught by my grandfather, do a lot of volunteer work in community projects. You just do that. So subsequently, when I'm at home, I'm always busy. I get up in the morning and I'm on the go and I'm doing things. When I lie down in the evening, I feel accomplished each and every day. So I have been fortunate to have received a couple of residencies from IAIA, the Indian Art School, in which I was able to go for 3 months and live there off campus, but use the studios there to work. And then that introduced me to the whole concept of what residencies were about, and opened the door for me to really start working on a Gnarly Root, of which I ended up, the next move was to, again, to Santa Fe, and I was there for 3 months at the School for Advanced Research, and they gave me a really nice house on a hill overlooking the whole campus, as well as the town of Santa Fe. And then 187 steps away from the front door was the entrance to my studio, which was down a little lower in a ravine and next to the main complex of the Amerind Museum. And then after that, I went to Durango and was staying in a farming community in Hesperus, living in a dome house that a person was heading out on vacation and needed somebody to house sit her place for a month. So I treated that as residency and went there, was sleeping underground, and had quite a few really interesting experiences spiritually, which led to more injections into the piece. When I first started it, in fact, I had an idea of what I wanted to do with it. However, that first morning, I had my breakfast and I was meditating on what I was going to be doing. And I went outside the front door and started walking down the path to the studio when a deer crossed my path. And that prompted me to start the piece off with a female deer. And that set the tone for the whole matriarchal side on the front of it. So I've been listening to what's going on around me and paying attention to signs and everything. And that is what's being applied to the piece. I had one area where there was this big drip looking bulb sticking out on it. And I didn't know what to do with it, but below it, I carved a priest like he's sitting in an alcove ruin site. And that kind of created a bigger quandary with that bulb. And I was sitting outside of that dome one night, just looking at the stars because it was a very dark area. And it happened that there was a comet coming through at the time. And one night I'm sitting out there and I was able to observe it. When it dawned on me, that would be absolutely the perfect thing to put up above the priest, because as he was smoking and putting his prayers into the smoke and releasing it, the comet was coming down and picking up those prayers to take them out to the universe. So that's kind of how this whole process has been. There's a lot of little innuendos in this piece. And yeah, it's going to take a little booklet for anybody who purchases this piece to fully understand the breadth of the symbols in it.
So you may have just answered our next question with your last sentence there. Is there a home selected already for Gnarly Root?
I have received a really good offer, and I've had several other people sincerely interested in purchasing it. However, the standards for competition at the museums as well as at Santa Fe Indian Market is the piece has to be available for sale if you want to enter the piece in the competition. So while I have a list of people who are interested in it, the one person, it was a really solid offer. He backed out because he thinks the museum's going to end up with the piece. So I am kind of holding off. And as I mentioned, I am doing on my blog little clips of the process. And now I'm preparing to start doing it all through video.
All right, and we have time, I think, for one last question. And she asks, I understand the center of cottonwood branches have a star. Does Gnarly Root have a star inside also?
She's speaking of the branches. The roots, they're very soft and porous. Essentially, they're a sponge, and they're soaking in the spirits, the minerals and the spirits of the earth. But as I showed you earlier at the end of the piece, it's just like any tree with a concentric circle. I've never noticed that about the branches, so now I'm going to have to take a hike this evening and go find a cottonwood tree and cut a piece off.
All right, well, thank you so much for sharing your time and your lovely works of art with our audience today, Jerry. I would like to remind folks that you can purchase Jerry's artwork at his website. You can see the web address on your screen there. It's gquotskuyva.com/all-products. We encourage you to help support Jerry's art. And Jerry, thank you so much. We hope to have you back for another Amerind program or exhibit or residency, something soon.
Thank you. And as a last minute note, what is available currently on the website, if anybody is interested in anything they saw, please give me a call at 928-300-2206, and I will provide a 20% discount on the sales price of what you see on the website. And that's on my website, gquotskuyva.com.
That's extremely kind of you. Thank you so much.
And thank you for the opportunity, Annie.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you to all of our audience members and of course our members and donors and sponsors of Amerind Virtual Autumn Fest. And we will be back at 3 o'clock with more programming with photographer Priscilla Ticini. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.